Yeah, and I have a pile.
Are we live?
You're live.
Great, thank you. All right. I'm calling the Environmental Advisory Committee to order, and we want to acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act.
What's the date?
And today is June the 12th, Thursday, June the 12th, 2025, 4 o'clock. The first order will be approval of previous meetings minutes unless, because we don't really have public comment. You all are going to be speaking about the Palm.
Technically, they signed up for public comment, so we can do
we
that
do
after
that?
the minutes,
Okay.
right? They did,
Well, let's do.
three people emailed me to ask to speak about it.
Okay,
So-
all right. And in the meantime, let me do a roll call if we can.
I'm going to try to remember who's not here. So, Ms. Levens,
Here,
Ms. Popson,
here.
Ms. Pringle.
Here.
Mr. Sikora,
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Here.
Ms. Mars,
Here.
Lucia.
Ms. Spiota is absent, Mr. Buckout is absent. 1, 2, 3.
Is Katie?
And
Katie.
Councilmember Myers?
Yep.
All right, you have a quorum.
We have a quorum. All right, great. All right, then we can have citizens' comments then.
Well, you started the minutes, so let's do that
Oh, all right,
first, and
okay.
then do the.
All right. So the first order would be approval of previous meetings minutes from last month. Did everybody have a chance to read through?
I did, and Nicole, I did
Yes.
have a question.
Sure.
On page 2.
Okay,
In the section E
okay.
with the roundup. In that first sentence, it says that, the city rarely uses the glyphosate, and it will be blank, or it'll be each to implement a ban on city-owned properties.
Be easy.
And I wasn't following that.
I may have left out a word or exchanged them. I'll reread that sentence.
Easy,
It
I
would be
think.
easy.
Instead of
Easy.
each.
Okay,
easy.
change the word. Very good, thank
So we'll
you.
change it to easy,
All right.
to implement a ban. Were there any other corrections or additions?
That was the only thing that I saw.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I move they be accepted as corrected.
All right, do I have a second?
I second them.
Go ahead, Tom.
I second the motion.
All right. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the meetings have been approved. And now we can do our citizens' comments.
Mr. Carroll signed up first.
Okay. Mr. Carroll?
He gets a little extra time
Y'all
to
have
the
to,
podium.
excuse me, this is day 18 on a brand new knee.
Boy.
I'm going surfing tomorrow with Douglas.
I don't know if you can keep up.
Carol
Play
Brown.
Wow, it feels good to be on this side of the microphone as opposed to being over there, but I thank each and every one of y'all for doing what you do. I did bring a handout, and I'm not going to sit here and read verbatim what they say. Y'all can do that on your own, but I'd like to talk about what kind of transpired through a grassroots effort. We started talking about the parking lot, Patsy Hyman and I, and then Sandra, and Benj, and Hugh. We just, the more we talked about it, the more it grew enthusiasm. So we posted something on Facebook, and it started off as one name, and then we started thinking, Plant a Palm on Palm Boulevard was done after Hurricane Hugo, and the residents of Isle Palms did that. And somebody goes, why don't you call it Plant a Palms 2.0? I said, bingo, that's a great idea. So we've done that. Within 11 days, we had almost the amount of palm trees we needed to fill the lot. There's a diagram that's in part of your package that Kelly Messier, who's a island resident, her children grew up here in Isle Palms. She's a retired landscape architect. She's done work for the city over the years. It's an ugly drawing. I'm sorry. I gave her the tax records, and I walked off the bollards and the aisles myself. But I think she's asked City Hall for a real plat, and she'll make it a real presentation with profiles from all angles and overall. On this, there's 135 palm trees. We're trying to create an oasis for non-island resident parking, non-island visitor parking. in the news, we're hit all the time with Isle Palms, a bunch of elitists, we're bad people and we don't do parking and the lot we have is ugly. Well, this is going to make it stunningly beautiful. It'll really be an oasis for people to come to. It will take probably 2 years for the palm trees to really blossom out with their canopy. But there's just so many positive aspects, again, on that list that you can read. And again, 135 palm trees that will go in there that fit perfectly. And the best part, we're not losing one parking place. And that was critical for our whole picture here. We, the residents, grassroots residents, we're representing the commercial district. We're representing the family vacation rental group. We're representing residents from the south end of Isle Palms all the way up to the north end of Isle Palms and the Wild Dunes. So it's a mixture of everybody. I come before y'all to look at this and give us your blessing. I think it's an ugly lot, and this is our opportunity to give back to the community, the residents giving back to the community. I think the overall cost, that if you add up the trees, we've got a price at $300 per tree installed. We're asking the city for permission to do this. We're asking the city to put an irrigation drip system in there. And of course, maintain the trees once they start growing like they do with the rest of the trees that we're planting on Isle Palms. So I'm going to end there and say, do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Jimmy, all of these little green crosses, those are the palm?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, yeah.
The cost of the palms, is that funded by the city as well, or is that?
No, ma'am.
separate?
No, sir. This is a grassroots resident, commercial, and business. We're giving it to the city.
So the 135 palms are covered?
135,
by the
no
dues.
cost to the city.
That's wonderful, yeah, okay, thank you.
So you,
I mean,
you need the city to provide drip
Yes,
irrigation,
ma'am.
you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
When I finished as mayor, I put 15 oak trees out there, and they're all alive, but they're struggling. And a lot of people say, well, we'd like to see oak trees. Oak trees are beautiful. Don't take me wrong, I love oak trees. But they have a very shallow root system. And I was reminded today that Mayor Bunch planted oak trees out there and put bollards around them to kind of protect them and everything, and every one of them did not make it. The soil condition that's out there, when we planted those oak trees, we had an axe pit. We were just like digging in the concrete. It was a back-breaking. I was on all fours by the time I finished. David Quick helped me with that, planting the trees, but Kelly says the palm trees are the perfect tree for this location. And plus, we are the Isle Palms. In fact, Isle Palms shirt. More
Jimmy,
questions?
How are we able to accommodate all those trees without impacting the parking? I mean, is there just a certain buffer in the parking lot already that will
Yes,
accommodate
ye-
those trees?
Sean, good question. We made sure when you look at the parking, there's actually a space going right down the center, and these trees will fit in there perfectly. If we tried an oak tree, it would not fit. So palm trees are really the perfect missile to put in between there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Jimmy, this layout is, Kelly tried to
Yes.
draw out what's actually in existence out there.
That's
now,
correct. That's correct. But
It's
she
not a
also,
change in the layout or anything else.
no, the only thing she says is, Jimmy, I think she found another state or county layout, and these are tax records that I printed out. I think she called City Hall and asked for the actual plat, and if we get that, she's going to do a presentation to council that will be in color, it'll be a full size, it'll be profiles from the side and overhead. I mean, y'all going to say, yes, let's do it.
And how long will it take?
Good question. The last thing we want to do is plant the trees in the summertime and during vacation time and rental time. Probably November would be the best time. There's still a little bit of sun left. Get them in, let them get that last little bit of sun, and have that cold winter just to kind of slowly root themselves. So yes, good question.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Jim.
Are y'all laughing at my walking?
Yeah, you're still walking.
Hugh, do you have something more you want to add, or you?
What's it gonna take to do the irrigation?
Okay.
Yeah, so Katie
Katie?
online just asked what it would take to do the irrigation part of it. And I think, so Robert and I talked a little bit about the irrigation, and he's probably best suited to answer that. But there is a well in place.
Yeah, we currently have irrigation there, irrigation's the whole parking lot. There's gonna be some, oh, you want me to go get it?
Yeah, please go front.
Just so it picks up.
Sorry, Robert. No, you're good. Yes, we currently have irrigation in that parking lot. There's gonna be modifications to the main lines because that's where the palm trees will fall. And then off of those main lines would be the drip lines, but it's currently all working. It's a new pump down there, so it'll accommodate these trees, no problem.
And it's from a well?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, Katie, I'm speaking for Robert, but I think we just got the layout of the trees, so I would suspect we would need to meet with an irrigation contractor, kind of walk the plan, see the amount that it would cost. So there would be some expense, but it sounds like from what Robert's describing, we wouldn't anticipate it being more than 4, 5,
Yeah,
less than $10,000?
Yes, yeah. I think with all the drip irrigation,
Don't they only need to be watered for the first couple, when they're new?
I think so. I think the first few months,
Yeah.
I think the first maybe,
I know I haven't watered mine since 2 weeks after
Yeah.
they were planted.
Yeah.
And they're doing fine. So I'm just wondering if we even need to, if there's something else we could do that would
Like-
be even easier than that.
you actually get the warranty with the palm trees for up to a year if you have irrigation. If there's no irrigation and they die, you're out of luck. So
Oh,
it's an insurance policy
Okay,
on the trees, so.
And then,
yeah, and I think even if we were to not irrigate it, I think we would have the option of doing, what do they call the
Yeah,
bags?
the bags, and we
There's a
tried
bag,
that
and then you
though,
have to
but
kind of go to each bag with a hose, fill it up.
Yeah.
So I think the kind of easiest and probably the most cost-effective thing would be to add these lines to it, even if they're only there for, 6 months. It's probably better from an insurance policy and more practical to do it that way. But we'll
Yeah.
work with our irrigation contractor to see what it would take.
okay.
okay.
another question for you, the cost,
Good.
on the cost, the maintenance, the annual pruning, do we do that? Do we have city employees that do that? We outsource
No,
that?
we subcontract through Planet Green, I believe now is who does that.
Yeah.
And it's on account. I think we have 1,068 palm trees, so that would just be added to the list of palms.
Is it a per tree, or is it a kind of a
Yeah,
volume?
it goes on per tree.
So we can figure out what the additional maintenance cost would be for the,
Yeah,
okay.
that's easy to do. You
Yeah.
can get that.
You don't recall what it was. Seems like we just did it. I can't recall what that.
Yeah, so for the 1,068, or maybe even more than that, is about 29,000 per year. So you add in 137 more. I think the more they do,
Yeah.
the better it is.
Do we get a
What
price
is it?
break?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
How many trees?
A volume discount?
Yeah.
Todd's going to give it to you in just a minute.
27.
$27 per tree.
Per tree.
And
So
I mean,
27 times 135 is
Mhm. Oh, you want the actual
Yeah.
number?
27 times 135,
3,000.
3,645.
and that's annually.
Yeah, 3,500.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm Hugh Swingle. I'm here representing the Family Vacation Rental Group. For those of you who don't know what that is, we're a subgroup of the Chamber of Commerce. We're made of property managers and property management companies. We're really excited about this project. We've given 10 trees to this project, and we're just looking, for everybody's blessing on this and to get this project going as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
Benjamin? This is the third speaker, third and last speaker.
Okay.
Like you, I'm part of the short-term rental, but more importantly, we have 3 restaurants down on Front Beach, and we have the Ocean View condo complex down there. So we have a lot of visitors that use that parking lot, and we always hear it referred to as the ugly parking lot. You know, do I park in that ugly, barren parking lot? So
And what was your name?
Benjamin Farmery. So I have IO Pizza, Smugglers, Poppies, and then the Ocean View condos right there in that, you know, in that stretch of Front Beach. So you know, we're certainly behind this. I think we have a commitment of 22 trees, you know, from the different organizations that I'm involved with. So, you know, we love this effort. You know, when we heard about it, we jumped on board right away. And I think, you know, I speak on behalf of the entire commercial district. I know there's other restaurants that aren't able to make it today, so they asked me to, you know, speak on their behalf. So I think that you had a really good buy-in from the entire commercial district down there.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Do we need to, I mean, is there anything that we officially need to do other than?
Well, do you want to discuss it now? I mean, it's on
We
your
can-
agenda.
yeah, we can
Kind of
discuss-
down,
yeah.
you can
Yeah.
reorder, everybody agreeable to reordering the agenda and moving that up to
Yes.
discussion?
Is
now?
everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right, then we'll reorder it and move it up.
Do we have to move to do that?
I think your
We're okay.
secretary would tell you to do that, but.
We should do that. Okay, all right, then we'll make a motion to move the Plan a Palm initiative up to our A position. May I have?
So move.
Okay.
Somebody,
All right,
second?
second?
I'll second.
Okay, so moved.
All in favor?
So,
We got to vote.
what?
We got to vote.
Oh, we have to
Move.
vote, all right. I'm sorry. Let's vote to move it up to A position. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Nay. Okay. Okay. Comments, thoughts, concerns?
I think it's a great idea. I'm supportive. I saw the write-up one of the newspapers did recently, and I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure we understand the cost of it, and you know, that's
Yeah.
built into the budget each year. And if we lose, like if we have some trees that die, the 135, you know, what the additional cost would be to do the. to,
Are they insured, though? I mean.
For a year, they
For a
are.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we water,
Right.
which is the plan, correct? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, as long as the irrigation works, right.
Well,
Yeah.
and this makes a nice dent in the 200-ish that were
Yeah.
taken out by Dominion. So I think it's a nice replacement plan that does more than just replace, but it also helps beautify a part of the city that is not exactly the prettiest place on the island.
The other comment, Mr. Swingle mentioned the 10 trees, I think he said, were donated. I don't know if there's another, do we not have something in the city, a tree preservation, or what's the name?
We have a tree
Yeah,
fund.
we have a tree fund.
Yeah, we maintain a tree fund.
Okay.
Is the city putting anything towards this? Any money towards?
Well, there's been the request that the city add irrigation, you know, the things that were requested.
Would the-
But
There
not
is not
actually
an
the-
intention
for the-
of,
For the trees themselves?
correct.
Okay,
Would the maintenance and the irrigation be able to come from that fund, or is that a different
Yes.
use? Okay.
Yes.
okay.
And then,
And, one more thing, just to confirm, there's not any power lines that we're gonna be,
Yeah.
putting-
Right, yeah, we want to make sure we do the right tree, right place.
shed, is that overhead? The power to the shed?
To the shed, but just from Pavilion Drive.
Yeah, I think, Katie, the only overhead line that I can think of, I think there's one to the little shed, but I don't think there's not anything that we couldn't work around pretty easily. I guess procedurally, I would just say that this, and, well, I guess a few things. The city council and the subcommittee of the council that deals with facilities will also need to talk through, I think from a, just kind of a practical use of the land standpoint. There have been concerns when other projects are brought up about the fact that this is a wide open lot. It's used, it has a lot of flexibility in the use of it. I think Public Works has used it as a transfer station after disasters. You know, the big trucks go around, They're dumping all of the limbs and debris that's on the island in that lot. It then is put into 18-wheelers. It allows the city to quicker, and it's never quick, but it allows us to get debris off of the people's properties quicker, put it into that lot, and then we kind of work away at it. So that's a little bit of a challenge that I know that we'll discuss, I think, at the Public Facilities Committee. There's also the issue of, once you kind of memorialize a project like this, a community needs to know that there is a certain amount of sentimental value that instantly is connected to that. So, and we face this with, we have placards down there with, next to benches, next to trees in the roadway. Something happens to that bench, people come asking, what happened to my bench? I paid $500 30 years ago, and I'm not finding it. So there is a little bit of there's kind of stuff associated with allowing a project like this to happen. I think that will be talked about and kind of worked through from the political side of things at the council meeting. I would expect this group to look at it through just, the environmental, your
Lens, yeah.
Your lens is the environmental lens.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy kind of spoke to the question about, I think I'm hearing them say this is the right tree at the right place because of space, because of the lack of the compaction of the soil. I think they feel like this is the proper environmental treatment of this property, and I think that would be kind of the purview of this group. Do you all feel like, this is environmentally the correct thing to do? Would it be better if there was a group that would have a judgment about oaks being better? This would probably be that group. This is where that kind of discussion would be had in my mind.
Okay.
So I think I would expect this group to just consider it from that standpoint. And I'm not giving you a suggestion or opinion, but I think that's kind of the framework that this group would look at the request under. And then I think through that lens, you all would then make a recommendation to council. So this is not a normal, this kind of process doesn't work its way through frequently, so it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of how we want to deal with it, I think, and kind of thinking through how it would be handled. That's the way we're anticipating it would be handled. You all would look at the environmental issues. Public Facilities would look at the kind of policy and usability issues and feed those recommendations up to council, and they would make an ultimate judgment.
Are you saying it's not up to us to worry about whether Public Works would need this space for dumping stuff after a hurricane?
I think that would be outside of your purview.
We
That's
just
good to
need
know.
to consider
Yeah.
the environmental pros and cons of this type.
That would be
And
my
I-
suggestion.
And I know for a fact that the palm tree, the balls need very shallow land to actually be planted in, versus an oak tree, which
Right.
does need a lot of depth and has a lot of roots. The root ball of a palmetto tree, are very shallow and they aren't extensive. So from my standpoint of what I know about palmettos, and I'm not an arborist, but it could be a great environment for them to be able to grow properly, as well as, provide a much more beautification aspect to the lot. That's just my un-arborist opinion.
Yeah, we've lost
What-
our
what-
arborist.
Lot is the question. Is that a gravel lot? And can you plant them in a gravel lot?
It is compacted
It's-
ROC. So
Okay.
yes, it's not concrete, but that ROC, and Jimmy kind of spoke to it, it does become pretty close to concrete. And they'll have to auger out, I'm sure they'll have an auger
Yeah.
to drill the holes in, but
But it
the
is
point was
pervious.
made that it's
It's a
other than a
pervious.
palm tree, there's not a lot of species that I think would survive there.
survive
And I-
that.
And I think we do know that from experience, that the oaks that were planted previously did not do well. They didn't they didn't prosper. Eventually, they were removed. We have hopes for the oaks that are there now. But I do think prior experience tells us that other species have definitely struggled there.
And my concern would be with the root system of the oak trees and wrecking the parking lot.
Yeah, it would,
Right.
it could,
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it would just disrupt that. So, I mean, I think the palm trees make the most sense.
And they're
I don't know.
if it's a really windy day, we don't have to worry about it blowing over on people or their cars or like.
no, they bend really well.
No pine trees.
They're pretty stable.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
know if this committee is the right place, but I'm just kind of thinking if we are gonna go forward with this and do irrigation, would it be, better to try to do some sort of, I don't know, sweetgrass, ground cover, something with the trees? Like, would the trees do better that way? I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking,
Yes.
or is that getting too much in?
We could certainly ask
Into the weeds.
Kelly, as a landscape architect, I'm sure would have an opinion.
Kelly had an opinion, and palm trees were the best.
What about adding?
if we were to add,
Adding grasses in addition.
I can't answer that. I never addressed it. But I would like to address one other thing, is I did talk to the Public Works Department.
I'm not, don't do it.
no, it's
You got a
good.
bad knee.
Man, I can fly over there. We talking about?
Just know Carol is watching.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I should have said this before. I did go by Public Works and talk to them, and the way it is a debris site in case of emergency. And if Robert wants to come up and speak in spite of me, it might be better hearing it from him. But Donnie and Robert both said that the way the lines are set up, because as long as we don't mess up those lines, we're not going to hurt the debris dropping of
Drop
stuff.
placement.
So again, the way it is was perfect for the Public Works. Sorry, I didn't bring that up before.
Well, but again, you're still gonna have to vet it with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be kind of an operational, that discussion would involve Public Works, the other kind of facilities departments. So we'll work through that. If there's not an issue, it sounds like that would be fine.
I think this is a great idea. I like the question about adding other things, whether it be native grasses or native flowers, something with color. But, we just did the native garden this past year, so maybe that's an opportunity to expand. If there's any space available to do that, have some flowers to complement the trees, not in lieu of, but, just look a little bit broader than just the trees. But I think the idea is great, and I'm supportive of it.
I am too, and
I
I
am
think
too.
that it's definitely the right plant environmentally. I think it would have to, if we were going to try to add native flowers, we would have to do a lot of enrichment of that poor soil. I think the best thing to do is just go ahead with this project and
We could
then
look-
think about that later, maybe.
A phase
Yeah,
two.
a phase two potentially, because Mary's right, we would have to really, really enrich the soil a lot.
That would be a whole different thing.
And that'd be a whole different ballgame. But I think this is a wonderful idea, and I would definitely want to move forward with it.
Just a quick clarifying question. The labor to plant the trees would be funded by the grassroots effort or the city?
The price that we quoted.
Don't do it.
It's included. The price includes planted.
Included.
It includes
The price we
it.
quoted, put out there was $300 a tree, the tree and planting together.
Got it.
Okay,
And so that's not, the city, that's being funded through the
It
community?
won't cost the city a penny.
Yeah.
okay.
Seems like a no-brainer,
Yeah.
particularly from the optics
Oh,
of this committee.
And I like to, also, this is a pretty cool aspect. The person who's quoting us this, his mother is one of the original Plant a Palm. Her name is up there on the sign, Bonnie Taylor. Used to be at 527 Ocean, I think, but full circle, pretty cool.
All right.
Okay,
So
So a recommendation, is there a motion to make a recommendation to council?
I make a motion to make a recommendation to move forward.
and I'll second it. Well, 1, 2, 3. So we have, Now we
Motion.
vote.
Yeah, vote on the
All
motion.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We will move it forward to council.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Let me hop out of here.
Yeah. Sorry to make you run around so much, Jimmy.
Okay.
Good, it'll keep it from stiffening up.
Yeah,
Went through that.
right.
It's still very swollen, I can see it.
All right, well, let's move then to our lighting ordinance presentation by Todd Murphy.
Yeah. I didn't know we were going to have a large group when I walked in here earlier. We started this lighting ordinance initiative last year, and so it dawned on me that we've got some folks that joined the committee since then, and we really haven't talked about the kind of the why, what got us here. So I thought if you guys would give me about 5 minutes to just kind of recap sort of what are we doing and why are we doing this and what's the significance. We do have in the packet, there is the latest draft of the ordinance, Douglas, which Matt did look at before he exited, and I held his feet to the fire to make sure he didn't mail it in. So we do have what we believe to be final draft. The comments from last time primarily were to remove the streetlight references, and there's language in there that existed that says the streetlights have to be shielded in such a way that they don't shine on the beach, and that they use low impact sodium lights. We took the low sodium impact out because Dominion told us they don't have those anymore, but left the rest of that language in there as it was. Okay, so I want to make sure that's what we talked about.
Right.
Not strike that thing entirely, just take that reference out. The rest of the stuff that was, I think everything was the same as it was the prior meeting. But just to give me 5 minutes. If this makes sense, you guys give me feedback. If there's any changes, let's incorporate this into maybe a 1 or 2 pager that goes with the ordinance as we escort it down to legal, police department, and eventually to, I think it's Public Safety Committee before it goes to the City Council. So in summary, there's been significant development on the island over the last 10, 15 years. A lot of that has to do with the increased interest in renting homes, short-term rentals. And so the island moved from a lot of smaller ranch, brick-type homes to very large homes, either through a tear-down, rebuild, or through an addition. And while all that construction was going on, a new standard in the lighting world came out, which was LED. And so LED lights have very high temperature, a high color and intensity. By default, a lot of them are the very bright blue-white lights. I think I made a reference of several meetings ago that Lowe's, I looked on Lowe's website, their number one seller was this like 6,000 Kelvin spotlight, for $29.95. So it's like, that's what every contractor's buying. It's the cheapest one, it's the brightest one, and it's probably the worst one. But, so what's resulting from all this development, not just on the island, but across the country and across the globe, is what's known as sky glow. And that's a phenomenon where you can't see the stars at night. The city is so lit up that you can't see the sky. So just a tremendous amount of light at night. And the studies have shown that this negatively affects humans, wildlife, and pollinators. And so Isle of Palms today has an ordinance that prevents lighting on the beach, and it protects sea turtles specifically, whereas the other low country islands we've talked to, Kiowa, Edisto, Folly, Sullivan's, they've all gone farther. They've all put in ordinances around protecting other types of wildlife on other parts of the island, whether that be in the river, the marsh, the interior of the island, and that sort of thing. So we're behind. Our neighbors have all done more than what Isle of Palms has done at this point. And the interesting thing is, Laura actually presented to council Tuesday night. Didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time on this. But there's a graphic that I'll include in this that shows that Isle of Palms actually has a materially higher light footprint than our other community, barrier island communities in the low country have, specifically Folly, Edisto, and Kiowa. Now, Edisto's more remote, right? That's kind of explainable. Kiowa's got a lot of green space, somewhat explainable, but the Folly Beach one is the most interesting one, and they actually have the lowest light radiance of the three I just mentioned. Right? So it seems interesting. So why would Folly have, there's a rating, by the way, this is NASA available data from satellites where they look at the light footprint at night and they track this over time. I don't remember the metric, but the radiance measured for Folly was around 50 whatever units in 2014. It's still around 50 in 2022, whereas Isle of Palms is starting at 325 in 2014, is up to close to 350. So like 3.5 times the light footprint of what Folly has. And so, why is that? If you look at the proximity and, other elements, that you would not expect that, right? So we'll talk about some of the ordinances that they've done and the things, kind of the sort of what we have, what the middle ground is, and what Folly has done. And that's kind of the gist of where the ordinance ended up. But a couple of articles that I'd like to reference. There's a U.S. Fish and Wildlife article from July of 2023 that mentions that wildlife, plants, and insects evolved to coexist with the night sky illuminated by the stars and the moon. And then in a matter of decades, humans transformed the dark and naturally lit night sky to one that is glowing and brightened by artificial lights. So light pollution's negative impact to birds and turtles, sea turtles in particular, has been known for a while. Like that's a well-known fact, but now there's become more and more focus on the negative impact to pollinators. This is the Fish and Wildlife article. The light pollution disruption to the natural sleep cycle that repeats every 24 hours, which is known as circadian rhythm. It distorts the natural rhythms in seasonal lighting that provide important cues to all life. So when do you hibernate? When do you migrate? It also changes time that plants, spend awake or sleep and the activities that they typically do during the waking hours. So the net of it is it's negatively affecting natural cycles for wildlife and pollinators. The pollinators are interesting. They're critical to the ability for plants to reproduce, to produce fruit. So actually the pollinators affect 60% of our food source. They're critical to the food source, probably not as relevant to Isle of Palms. We don't grow a lot of crops on the island, but it's an interesting fact to understand that the way that they do support flowers and trees through their cross-pollination. And then the last article, American Medical Association article, talked about the primary concerns with nighttime lighting, which include potential carcinogenic effects related to melatonin suppression, especially breast cancer. Other diseases that may be exacerbated by circadian disruption include obesity, diabetes, depression, mood disorders, and reproductive problems. And the article goes on to say these may be bold statements, but they're not without substantial scientific support, which has been building for several decades. So it's not just the animals, it's the two-legged animals, the visitors and residents that are on the island. Okay. So what's happened so far, as I mentioned, Isle of Palms, we have an ordinance that today says no light on the beach, no light on the sea turtles. Kiowa and Edisto have gone farther. They also have that type of an ordinance, but in addition to that, have an ordinance that says lighting must be shielded so that it does not shine onto neighboring residential properties, natural areas, or bodies of water, whether that be internal, behind, or in front of the island. Okay, so they've gone a step further by protecting the entire island. And then Folly, which is the one that was the lowest light footprint, they have a very technical set of ordinances around building that I'm not going to recommend that we implement today, but it probably explains why their number is so low. Lighting plans are required as part of their building permit application. Any lighting greater than 60 watts or 100 lumens must have a shield that forces the light downward. Okay, that's a big one. Right? There's no light going out. There's no light, that's over 60 watts that's not shielded. And then they have lights cannot be located within 10 feet of the property line, so it has to be very tight to the building structure itself. And then they have a fairly technical issue or ordinance that I'm not a scientist, so I can't quite explain exactly how it works, but they measure foot candles of light across the ground level of the property, and they look for variances. And so you don't have hot spots of light on one part of the property and a dim, kind of an area in the other part. It has to be evenly distributed, and then the maximum amount of foot candles of light that you produce relative to your lot size, there's a formula they measure there as well. So we spoke to them and we said, how do you enforce this? Do you have an engineer on staff? They don't, but they do calculate based on the building plans what amount of light per property produces that much foot candle of light. And so they really go a lot farther than what we're proposing to protect, the amount of light that's being produced per residential property.
Do you want-
But the benefit's there.
Do you want to go ahead and speak specifically to the changes that you have made now to
Yeah.
the ordinance, and then we can,
Yeah, so that's really it, that's the pitch. And then the ordinance itself, it's previously had a sea turtle beachfront kind of a focus. The changes, I'm not going to go line by line, but the changes were primarily to introduce the idea that light at residential properties. We decided not to tackle commercial at this time. We decided not to tackle streetlights at this time. Residential properties, light cannot bleed beyond the property, like you don't shine directly onto residential neighbor property or natural areas, that be part of the building code process. And that was the primary change. Now, we had to reroute several of the things in the ordinance to make that work because it was a sea turtle beachfront specific ordinance. So there's some rewording to make it structurally sound, but that's the primary change that we're proposing and asking to get to council for approval.
At the end, you talk about parks. Would that, the last section, section D,
That's a legacy. That was actually in there now.
that's in there already? Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I think so. It was, was number 4 under use of lighting, the pole lighting shall be shielded in a way? Was that,
That's a legacy pole.
that was a
yeah.
legacy too?
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Yep, that's no change on that item 4. The number changed because of the bullet list change, but
Okay.
the words themselves did not change.
So in terms of the change on the island, the people that are gonna have to make big changes are ones that aren't on the beach probably, right? Because the beach people are already attuned to this and protecting the turtles.
Well,
So I don't know, how do we see implementing that,
Right.
and getting people like on the marsh and other areas take notice of this and put in the right light?
Yeah, I think the first thing, Cindy, would be that everything goes through the permitting process. So if you're building plans and you've got, you would submit a lighting plan as well, external lighting plan, and then it would get called at the time that the permit is, before the permit is issued. And then, we talked about, we really don't see somebody walking the streets and enforcing this. It's more of a, if there's egregious violations that get reported, then the ordinance would take effect, would be applied at that point.
So this would be for new builds or renovations?
It's new and existing, the way it's worded and the way it always has been worded.
And so we're trying to catch it at the front end, but is there, I mean,
the ones.
how do we know, once the build has been completed, that they've actually followed through with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, if somebody reports it, like, it's not gonna, we're not gonna, I don't think we're proposing, and the other beach communities didn't do this either. I think Cindy says this really well. If we put the ordinance out there and make people aware of it, most people will abide by it, and so we get a better result. I think that's sort of the philosophy of it. It's not so much, we're gonna hire another compliance officer that's gonna go
Compliance,
around
yeah.
measuring foot candles or anything
Right.
like that.
Well, I think it's an opportunity for an education process, and I certainly think providing information to the public through our IOP, the farmers markets, would be an
Yeah.
excellent
We could
opportunity.
totally do a campaign, the
And
IIP
we-
newsletter.
And articles in the paper,
Yep.
papers.
Mary Pringle could write an article for that.
So, I mean, it's going to be a combined effort. It's going to have to be for existing properties that are already potentially would be out of line with the new ordinances. We're going to have to do some form of community campaign to let people know. And then certainly at the permit level, there will be specifics that they will have to follow.
Both of these articles, by the way, had a nice, short, succinct list of like a do's and don'ts, kind of a list. So it's-
Okay, so we can just
Yeah.
kind of,
repurpose that for
Repurpose
a
that,
kind of a
okay.
campaign, an awareness campaign.
I mean,
Totally do
it's
that.
not going to be perfect, but I think we have an opportunity to put something in place that for new permits that are being put forward, that they are clear about what can and cannot happen, and then we're going to have to educate other people that may have already put in the wrong type of lighting based on this new ordinance,
Right.
that please make a change to be more in compliance.
Mhm.
Yeah, I live on Morgan Creek, and so we live out Waterway. There's a creek between us and Waterway Island. And just huge spotlights. Like, we're all complaining, we all had to put in blackout curtains rooms, because you can't sleep, you know, and that all shines down on the water. So I'll be delivering brochures to the.
There you go. Yeah, we'll have to.
Personally.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Is the rec center excluded from this?
That's considered a commercial area.
Oh, it is?
I think that's the way it's in the section with the commercial, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not.
Right now, that would be excluded.
Well, but the park stuff was already in there anyway, so I don't know that we're proposing anything new that would
Nothing new.
impact the park, right?
Just the shielding, right?
Lights at parks or other public.
Yeah, but that was already in there, right?
That was already
D,
D,
D was,
number
yeah,
2.
that was already there. The only thing we did is we removed the low-pressure sodium bulb reference.
yeah.
From
So-
streetlights.
So D1, we took out low-pressure sodium bulbs and left shades and shields. D2, lights and parks, that's in the ordinance today.
I think the most controversial section is D, and that's already in existence.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, is what
But
it is.
hasn't been enforced.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I
Well,
mean, I
D-
think you could argue that,
So D is, I think it's only dealing with the beach, correct?
well,
No.
it's very confusing the way it's written, because a lot of ors, and it does talk a lot about parks. You know, lights at parks or other public beach access points shall be shielded or shaded, or shall not be utilized during the period of May 1st.
Which is
to
turtle
October,
season.
Which I would assume the rec center is a park. But I don't know if those lights are shielded. I've never looked.
Not the stadium type lights.
I believe they are.
They are?
They are?
The stadium ones, yeah, because they had to do that because of the neighbors around them,
Hmm.
Oh.
soccer field and both
I never see
softball
them at
and
night,
baseball.
that's good.
There you go. I mean, if it's
Okay.
already approved, then we don't need to litigate that.
Yeah.
And the public parking lot, I guess this comes under this because it's near the beach? Because those are the biggest impact.
I don't think, I don't think that light, the parking lot doesn't have lights, does it?
Municipal lot, I think it has just one by the shed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's just one at the big lot.
Very low.
And it-
I don't know,
shielded?
Cindy, if you're talking about we talked a little bit about the marina-owned
Yeah, we did.
pole light, but I think that would be,
But it's commercial and this is residential, right?
It's the way it's worded is the new and existing development. It's not, it doesn't say.
doesn't differentiate.
For the pole lighting, right. Well, that's the way it is today.
Which section?
It's the B, B, and then pole lighting shall be shielded, which I think is number 4 now. That was the original.
That's in there now?
So then you're saying it would be applicable to commercial then?
It is today. Mhm.
But the only thing that I think we regulate today is beach sea turtle. I mean, it is in the sea turtle lighting section of the ordinance.
Right. That's what
So we're
this-
saying that it's in there today, but I don't think there's any pole light
It would be relevant.
That would be
relative
relevant
to beach
to the beach.
visibility, yeah.
Yeah, so if we have the big parking lot, you can't see it, there are no lights visible from the beach. So I don't know, to me, I read B, and of course, I'm not looking at the red line, but it is it applies to new and existing development, and then pole lighting. So I do think that it's shifted from only applying to sea turtle and beach lighting to being island-wide, which I think was the intent.
Are you talking about the pole lighting one specifically?
Well, and I guess I would apply, a little bit of my struggle is I think it would be fairly straightforward to apply this to new development. I mean, we permit it, we review it, we inspect it, we control it. I'm a little concerned about kind of casting the net to cover everything and not fully, we've been throwing around examples for 2 meetings about what's at the marina, what's at the front parking lot. And I guess there's a concern that when we're talking about new regulations on existing development, that we don't fully, I guess I don't fully know all the implications of that. I mean,
Can we just put something in the very beginning that just makes it clear this whole policy talks about residential? I mean, there's elements of here which specifically say residential, so that's clear, but then there's other lines that don't make a reference, so
That's
it's
right.
confusing.
So-
But if you put something in the very, like, the subject could be residential outdoor lighting regulation, boom, and then you could have a little bullet point that just says, effectively, this only applies to residential dwellings or property or whatever.
We can do that. We're taking away current ordinance by doing that because some of this is not residential. If you have a street light and it's visible from the beach today, and that light shines on the beach, that's a violation of the current ordinance,
same with, I guess, the oceanfront.
regardless of whether it's residential or commercial or public.
Oceanfront
I mean,
condos.
you could add a new section. Instead of trying to make it fit in the ordinance that's already confusing,
Yeah.
just add a new section. It seems to me that would be,
So Katie, so I think Todd's making the point that it applies to the beach in the commercial district now. I think Eric is saying, well, I think what I'm hearing them say is, let's not back it down from where it is today in any way, so let's not exempt commercial, but let's add residential everywhere on the island. So you keep the beach part of the commercial district and add the residential parts for the rest of the island.
right, but it sounds like it would be easier, from a reading of the statute standpoint, to just make it, to leave what we have for the commercial, beachfront, turtles, all of that, and then just add a separate section for residential lighting.
So go back to leaving it like it is.
I understand what she's saying.
And then
I've
adding.
gone through this thing multiple times. It's a poorly written ordinance today. It's very difficult to clean it
There's a
up.
lot of that out there.
Right, but it's very difficult to clean it up and get to what we're trying to do without losing
Right.
some of the protection that's there around sea turtles and the beach itself. And I want to make sure we don't, there's confusion in the current ordinance, when you read it. It's like, well, if I'm not right on the beach, but my light shines on the beach, does that
Right.
matter? It's,
Well, none of it's being enforced either, so even, you read this, and you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds strict, but it's been an ordinance for,
right.
whenever this was
I
approved.
mean, I guess I think it is, and Mary would be the authority on this. I think it is maybe somewhat enforced. I mean, I think there is something now.
Sometimes.
That if there is an issue that the turtle team sees, you will have the tool in the code to say that needs to be turned out.
What we've
And
done.
I think that's,
We have a door hanger that has an abbreviated form of the ordinance, just about shining lights on the beach. And if we see a violation, we will go talk to the people. But nobody is out there patrolling the beach, code enforcement.
proactively.
Yeah.
So I
yeah.
think it's done reactively, kind of as needed.
We have always gotten the police involved if the people flat out refuse. They say, I'm paying for this house and I'm going to do darn well whatever I want. Then we'll have the police go visit them and threaten them. But up until recently, I don't think anybody's ever been fined under the ordinance, the light ordinance, and Folly does it all the time. They have on their website, this house was fined last night, and you better turn off yours or you will be too. I mean, they're really proactive about it, but we're not. And I'm not out there where all these nests are every night. I can't do that. So
But that's primarily residential beachfront. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
commercial beachfront. is
we
a
have
different
just
animal.
given up on, we will, the
You
the
move
main
them out of the
reason.
commercial area?
The main reason, last year we had a nest laid out there in front of the condos and the sea cabins, and we moved it because it was on the flat beach. But we really needed to move it because it wouldn't have survived there, and the lights, it's mainly the hatchlings we worry about, not the nesting turtles, because we can protect the nest by getting it to a good place, but we shouldn't have to do that. DNR used to tell us, you can't move a nest because of lights. You got to deal with the source of the lights, but there are all the restaurants and the bars, and we just couldn't do that. So we used the excuse that, okay, it's on the flat beach below the spring tide line, therefore we can move it for another reason. But enforcement has never been maintained for the lighting ordinance.
If you took, I mean, because this has a lot of new and old, and I also don't have the red line copy, but if you, what % of this is new in this?
There's a lot of restructuring. It's not necessarily new, it's just moved around.
Moved around.
Well, what % would you say is like new stuff?
10, 15%.
Because I think if you took that 10% and just made it its own thing, so you keep all the beach protection stuff, which is already in here, that doesn't change, you just add like a little, that 10% is kind of a standalone
Section.
Section.
addendum, and it would be a section that doesn't fall under, it really wouldn't be a section, it'd be its own thing, because if it's a section, then it would still only apply to beach and turtles, and some of this is much more far-reaching than that. So it'd almost just be to leave.
A new section.
Leave the old stuff as it is under the turtle policy, and then that 10 to 15%, which we're now talking about like a half a page, a quarter of a page, it's its own thing. And it's just, maybe it's, talks about how you can't shine lights in your neighbor's yard, and, which I think would be a new one, and could at least.
How do you feel? So, Todd,
I'll
if
take
you
a
were
stab at that. I'll try it.
leave section
Yep.
5417 added as is, add section 5418, and have that, well, I mean, I guess there is just a straight cleanup of, there hasn't been a low sodium bulb, I think we heard, since the 60s.
Right. But we could just leave it as is, even though that's no longer valid, instead of trying to pass that change as well. Just make it 5418, and then, but I'd like to send it to you guys and let you look at it. I think you're going to find there's a lot of stuff that conflicts now. You can't, if you're residential beachfront, you cannot have spotlights. If you're residential, you're not beachfront, you can have spotlights, they have to be shielded. Right? So you're both residential, like which one applies?
Oh, if you were to, so you may have to add into 5417, except as prohibited by, so then you're kind of referencing,
5418.
if there's a conflict, you reference
Yeah.
a new
I
section.
can take a stab at that.
Yeah, but that happens, whenever there's a section that's more restrictive, it's the more restrictive that applies. So that's something that ordinances deal with. I mean, it can certainly be written to deal with that, in order to make sure that we don't.
Could our lawyer help me with this?
Katie, would you be willing to help Todd because we've gone through this now multiple times. I know he's really tried hard. I mean, would you be able to? Well, no, I know he's.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, every single time we look at an ordinance, we find 100 problems with it.
So would you be willing to?
I am all about trying to clean up the one that's there and do a new one. I mean, yeah, I'm
Okay,
happy to.
all right.
I'd be more than happy to sit down and.
All right.
Then we'll let you
Volunteer.
and Todd reconvene, and then next month,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Because I want
The
to,
more that we can clean up these old ordinances, the better.
I agree.
Be organized by location, like, okay, I'm beachfront, so this is really relevant for me, or I'm not beachfront, so I don't have to worry as much about this, but I'll look into the second part of it, which is, island-wide, spotlights, flashlights, like, it just seems like it would be easier if you can direct the reader to what's relevant to them.
Yeah, the problem is, if you're row 2 and your light shines on the beach, that's a violation of the current ordinance, right? And you're not beachfront, you're row 2. What if you're row 3 and your light shines on the beach? You're still in violation of this ordinance. So there's no geography that makes sense. It's a, is your light from where your house is it shining on the beach? That's the violation today.
Right. Okay,
So if you've got a light on top of your widow's walk and you're 200 yards off the beach, you're in violation of the ordinance.
if it shines on the beach.
If it shines on the beach, yeah.
Right, okay, all
Okay,
right,
we'll work on it, Katie.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. I know you've worked on this a lot.
Thank you for the background.
Sure.
Yes.
If you have any feedback on the background, that would be helpful too.
I'm going to go back to the original. I think we all have the original ordinance, don't we? And then the
It
red
was in a
line?
packet a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I can resend that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Yep.
And I think I just put the clean version in the
Yeah.
packet. I'll
It'd be
resend the
helpful to
red
have the
line
red
too.
line.
All right.
Resend original and red line.
Okay, well, in keeping with our time, I'm just going to make a quick comment. The interpretive sign project, we had a great meeting out at the pier. I think almost everybody, I know Eric wasn't able to come, but we agreed to move one of the signs to a different, at the end of the pier, that's going to be more fishing oriented. We agreed to move it from the location that was on the existing graph, and everybody agreed that the new spot on the pole at the end there would be better. I think we also agreed that we might actually want to put one more sign on the railing on the dock, specifically to cover more birds. And Susan and I are meeting with Islander 71 and the marina on June 23rd in the afternoon. 2 separate meetings, but we're going to meet with them to talk them through the project and see if they would be willing to donate money to the project in return for their logo and name recognition on signs. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave that for now. We still have work to do with regards to pricing and getting a final on the sign, number of signs and the size of the signs. And I would really like to table the water quality testing. I have information that I was able to give you all, if you want to look through that, and then I'd like to be able to take the time to talk through that at the next meeting, next month's meeting, if that's okay with everybody. Could I have a motion to table that for next month's meeting?
I make a motion to table the water quality to the next meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The recommendations matrix,
Yeah, I can start. So we iterated a bit on this just to try to get to a kind of a top 20. And the way.
Somebody have this. Eric.
So we have like a top, so we took the matrix and we just ran like an Excel pivot and sorted by kind of the items that were classified as actionable that could be implemented in the short term. So we kind of are prioritizing impact. Obviously that were handed to this committee and didn't have a high cost budget tag. And so we found when we did that, we got, at the top 19. And so that's what you're looking at here is actionable short-term initiatives, not high cost, not necessarily high cost. There was a lot of blanks in the overall matrix in terms of, what was high cost and low cost. So we just took out the ones that were marked high cost to get kind of a top 19. So this is a way to prioritize. It's certainly not the only way, but if we want to kind of be oriented towards taking action and having a short-term impact, this would seem to be a good representation of the things to focus on.
And then Douglas, if I could just ask you a question, did the council decide that these are things we want to do? Or
No.
Okay.
No, so the way this has happened is the council has just divvied up a very large list of recommendations to the appropriate to what they felt like was an appropriate commission or committee, and they are hopeful that those committees will bubble recommendations up to them. So it's a little bit of parsing out, but no, that there hasn't been kind of an official action to latch on to any particular initiative, but the city council has received and, you know, I don't know if endorsed would be the right word, but they're aware of all of these recommendations, and I think they've supported them enough to say, you know, let's further study each of them with a hope that recommendations would come back to them.
So would they look to us to say, you know, this is not feasible or is, or, you know, what we think we
Yes.
should do?
Yes, I think so. Yes, if you, and I think, you know, the idea of seeing a list of 19 and, you know, if you will, well, or any number of them, if there are any that you disagree with, I think at their face, you would kind of acknowledge that. And if there are any that bubble up as, yeah, this is quick, easy, let's, you know, grab this initiative and run with it, elevate it to the top, I think that would also be appropriate. I do think I think there's an acknowledgement that there's so many things to kind of go through that not all of it will happen in short order. So a lot of it's kind of long-term initiatives that'll be ongoing and are, you know, and some are already ongoing and it's continuing that. So I think Eric's proposal of like identifying the quick, actionable things that we could get some movement on, I think that's a good way to proceed.
What happens?
I kind of look at it as a way to bring, you know, kind of pet projects, or, you know, the environmental committee can go look at their, and, you know, if there's something else on the list, if you want to go through the whole thing and, you know, there's something else that you think should be talked about in the environmental committee, you know, it's more of a chance to champion some of these initiatives, and you know, speak to ones that you care about and have a passion for, and try to get it so that council, you know, sees it in a better light, because otherwise it's like a huge long list that things could get forgotten. And, yeah,
So should we just
does that make sense?
go through the list?
One more, can I ask a process question, what Katie just said? I mean, it makes sense. What happens to the things that are not? Because this committee meets 12 times a year. We're here for 2 or 3 year terms. You know, some of these things are just way beyond what we could tackle in that time span, but they're critical maybe to the future of the island. What happens to the things that we say, hey, this needs to get done, but it's beyond what we could actually tackle? Is there somewhere for those to get bubbled up and championed somewhere else, or they just go away?
I mean, there are certain things, you know, and I guess a good example of this is like sewering the island. I mean, that's a big project that's going to it's going to take longer than any of our terms.
It's probably not going to be, it's going to have to be passed to someone else to ultimately
Yes.
solve. Like, we could get it started.
Well-
But I think that's one of those things
Yeah.
that can get started. It can be listed as, you know, support. We support it. We think it's important. You know, whatever we can kind of do in the short term to start moving towards that direction, we should be doing.
Okay.
But
Like
I
grant-
think there's an acknowledgement that it won't get done in short order.
I mean, yeah, I mean, grant writing, and obviously that was a whole reason why we brought the whole initiative for the council to partner with the city water department and hire this federal lobbyist. And it's not going to happen overnight, but that's why the federal lobbyist, a big reason why the federal lobbyist was hired.
Right.
There's a bucket of wish lists for the city, and there's a bucket of wish lists for the water department. And the biggest wish list for the water department is to have the funds that are going to be needed for building out the sewer program.
Right.
That's the only way it's going to happen unless there's, you know, taxation on the island to offset.
Right.
So, I mean, the EAC, that was a big step towards that initiative. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's been, I will say that.
That was the
There
key.
has been probably 10 years of MOUs and support, and, it is we partnered on creating the master sewer plan.
Sewer plan.
The city paid for half of that. So there's been kind of 10 years already of, let's work together, let's get this done.
Yeah.
It's just a very big.
That's what I'm saying, that's my point.
Ticket item.
It's way too big for this committee to own and champion all the way through
Right.
to completion.
I mean-
We can source the ideas or maybe light the firecracker,
I
but
think-
somebody's
I
got to
think-
run with it.
And I think we did by,
Yeah, right,
by
that's
bringing
perfect.
the whole idea of,
I would say, sorry,
Go ahead, Katie.
no, go ahead, Katie, go ahead.
But I was just, I love the idea of the top 2019, that, things that we can like, boom, boom, let's do it. But I would also say, like, let's please don't forget about the big ones, and because the squeaky wheel is gonna get the grease, hopefully. And so if we can keep, like, with the sewer stuff and, the more that people keep advocating for those things, the more likely it is that.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is just a starting point. We can start with the 19 once we review them. We should review every single one.
Yeah.
I mean, over the next few
Well-
meetings, I mean.
And I think, yeah, we'll let you do that, because some of this, I think, overlaps.
Sure, some of these we've already done,
and-
so it's, I think
well-
some of these, it's, you can check it off.
The third one down, conduct a comprehensive water quality assessment, that's what we're in the process of.
Right,
of-
so-
And that's what I'm going to bring forward next month
You can
is,
go through them just quickly.
go ahead and go
because
through
Some
it,
of them don't make sense
Eric.
by themselves, but
Yeah, add an eco-themed event to the rec department's annual calendar. I mean, that would be something that I think the community would love. You could do an Earth Day event and have something like, Earth Day's around Easter, so you could do, a month later or something, but I think families on the island would love something like that, and I think that would be a, relatively straightforward thing to do. I don't understand the second one, adjust packaging ordinances to close
Yeah,
loopholes
I
and
had a question
align with.
about that too. What does
with
that mean?
neighboring municipalities.
What even is
What are
it?
the loopholes?
Who is here?
If you don't mind.
Go ahead.
All the municipalities in the area have various, requests of restaurants mainly related to straws and to-go packaging and that kind of thing, but they're not all consistent. Most of the rest of the area has become consistent in their
Oh.
rules, but Isle of Palms is not.
Oh, packaging in
Oh,
regards to
okay.
whether they use styrofoam or
Yes.
paper. Okay, that helps.
We do have some, but they're not the same as everybody else's. They're close.
Okay,
But
well,
so
that,
we
but that
just-
helps explain what the
What do you mean the
packaging
same?
is.
Like ours are different than Sullivan's, or ours are different than?
More like Mount Pleasant, Charleston, maybe Sullivan's, I'm not sure. There is a green group that has a grid that actually shows where the Isle of Palms is not consistent with the others. And it's not just Isle of Palms, but some of the other municipalities are also a
Mhm.
little bit off.
Susan, could you email that grid to us?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll give us something to look at for the second one.
So should we, as we read through them, we can all just read it, but should we decide if we want to revisit it, if we want to add packaging ordinances to the meeting next month? I mean, what should we?
So what we're trying to do with each committee is add an additional column and just kind of add the status, a quick status description of, either their next steps. So I guess I would say on adjust packaging ordinances, we're going to put status as waiting on further information. So that's kind of what the other committees have been doing. It's either ongoing, some have been done, some need further study, some are support it, endorse it, but nothing to do now.
I can take, just a minute, a pen.
This is
Extra
this-
pen.
Maybe it's helpful, but who's accountable? So, yes, we're making a decision now, yes, we want to action this. Who's accountable and what are the next steps? And then a status.
Yeah, so let's just, I mean, we don't have to go through all 19 if we don't want to today, but,
I don't think we have time
Yeah.
today.
so maybe let's just see where we're at after 5. So for the rec department's annual calendar, I can take an action to talk to the rec center and see I don't even know what goes into getting on their calendar. Does anybody here know? Like if you, like.
Yeah,
Douglas,
Yeah.
why don't you just put that on the facilities? Carrie's always at our meeting, and we can just have that at our next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
yeah.
That should be.
You got it?
Carrie,
So the
yeah.
actions for Douglas to
Have Carrie come and
talk to Carrie at facilities?
Well, I mean, I guess even simpler than that, would it be, I mean, I think the
To call.
suggestion that I wrote down is add an Earth Day event at the rec center. We could just ask her,
Just ask-
Carrie, is that possible? What would it take? Is it,
Okay,
Yeah,
yep.
is that the event we'd want to do? Easter, I mean, it sounds like Eric had a pretty dialed-in recommendation of it's around Easter.
I mean, Earth Day is a logical thing. It doesn't need to be Earth Day. I mean, because it is nice to have spacing, and you have.
I liked how tidy that was, though. It's like the
Halloween,
big
you
one,
got
the easy.
Easter. Easter's, the problem is Easter and Earth Day are like 3 weeks apart. So.
Oh, so you're doing
Sullivan's
two and they
Island-
already have
Sullivan's
one?
Island does that every
Yes,
year.
every year.
Last year, they did it on Earth Day,
On
and the
Earth Day.
Turtle
Earth Day's
people
on-
went, and we
on
had a
Wednesday,
table.
yeah.
But
And we
this
had-
year, they did not do it on Earth Day. It was about a week different, and they just had a tour of their maritime forest and their new trail and the bird banding.
We don't need to.
It doesn't have to be on Earth Day.
Okay, so not Earth Day. Not as, it would
But-
seem so tidy.
But it could be an
It could be
Earth Day
an Earth Day
She
event.
has an Earth-
event.
Yeah, it
that
can be an
week.
Earth Day event.
yeah, Earth
It
Day
can be
event,
whenever.
yeah,
An Earth Day event at a convenient time to
At a
Carrie.
time that makes sense.
at a
Okay.
time that makes sense. Okay,
All
all
right.
right.
I'll ask Carrie for,
It could be tied to a farmer's market even.
Yeah, it could be tied to a farmer's market, and the first one is in June, this month, right? All right, and then,
So Doug to ask Carrie about an Earth
Yeah.
Day event. Okay.
yeah,
Adjust packaging ordinances, we're awaiting,
The green group.
the bad report card from the Green Grid.
green grid.
Green group.
The grid from the Green Group. Grid from the Green
Grid.
Group.
The G3.
All right.
Do we want to be like best practice, or we just want to be in line with, I don't know, Mount Pleasant?
I think, I would have thought we're better than Mount Pleasant I mean, we don't do plastic bags at the grocery store. I mean, so I think we just look to see what the grid says and
Yeah.
then we figure it out.
I would agree with that.
That seems like a good effort. I mean, it's a good, worthwhile thing to kind of consider if there's these loopholes.
Yep.
We know where we're at with the water quality assessment.
we're definitely going to do an update on that next month. I have all that.
So would we consider that comprehensive, what we're doing?
Yes, it will be. It's
Okay.
not going to, we're going to need to do several rounds of it, but we're going to go to the next step. We've done the first step, so we're going to move to a second step in comprehensive water quality testing.
So we're going to say that the group generally supports that initiative and it's already ongoing? Is that a fair
We did a
classification?
comprehensive last year. We're doing a subset.
We're doing a
this year
subset.
By choice, by design.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the word comprehensive, how you quantify it.
Well, it's
but-
going to be more specific.
Right,
We're
by
going to
design.
conduct a more specific water quality assessment.
So I mean, we're running with the concept, but
Actually, it'd be a targeted.
A targeted,
Right.
that's even a better word, yeah. We're going to be conducting a targeted water quality assessment.
When was this given, this feedback?
When did we get
Yeah.
these initiatives? I mean, they were developed over the last year. They kind of bubbled out of, most of them bubbled out of a committee really at the end.
But when
kind
did
of
the
beginning.
community submit them? Like within the last year?
Yeah, I'd say it started a year ago.
So I mean, from that, if someone conduct a comprehensive water quality assessment within the last year, I mean, we did that, right?
We did the first step last
We
year,
did,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like
check that box.
and we're,
Supportive.
this is ongoing.
Yeah, supportive and
I
ongoing.
think you listed as ongoing, because I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest things for this. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be the need for more education, but if somebody was really interested and they could go on and look and see that this is something I'm concerned about, and I say, oh, look, it's ongoing, and the environmental committee is dealing with it, and then they know how to find out more, because I think this kind of shows you that obviously people, it was happening, and people didn't know about it. So
Well,
that.
maybe that's leads us to the
I like
next
idea of having
initiative.
that.
So everything we've
We're
just,
doing it. Like, we're on.
so,
Good.
Yeah.
just to,
It's more communication, right? The fact that we're
Yeah.
on it and what the results have been.
so for statuses, I think it's gonna be helpful to have uniform verbiage, so we have ongoing,
Yep.
and then for something we're looking into, what's the label we wanna apply to that?
Investigating.
Investigating,
Yep.
okay, and
In
then so you
review.
got
In review, Nicole said, but either way.
ongoing, investigating, ongoing, and then concluded, or not, what's the right word for we're not gonna,
Yeah. We're gonna get there. Do we, one that we don't agree with?
I guess, yeah, maybe we won't. Develop a public education program on resilient strategies. I mean, I feel like that could mean, I don't know what that means.
That's
Can
a
that be part of the
very,
Neighbor.
oh,
It could be. I think that's more, it's almost like a brochure for this committee. Like, what are the things that, you know, we've learned or we've addressed? The native garden idea, I don't know what the other topics would be that would be relevant, you know, keeping your septic healthy, you know, those are
that's down,
resilient
that's,
strategies.
that's a
Could we
little bit
incorporate
further
that in
down.
the flyer
No, it's
that,
an education program.
Well, educate the owners of septic systems on proper
Okay,
maintenance.
so I guess I'm saying that could be a holistic
Yeah,
on all things. It's a resilient strategies. You know, how can you, resident/owner, you know, benefit from the things that we've been working on? That's kind of how I read it, at
in
least.
the
That would be-
community newsletter you've talked about the last couple meetings, we could
Mhm.
have a section on, you know, being a resilient community member, or something like that, and you could talk about septic, or you could talk about
rain gardens.
any number of things.
And when I read the word resilient, I think of more like hurricanes or like you're resilient to, I don't know, a natural disaster or something beyond your control. Whereas I think about the sewer or the native plants as more best practice. To me, that doesn't fall under resilient, but maybe I'm just not interpreting it
I mean,
correctly.
Can we
I
ask
would-
the person who submitted it? Is that crazy?
If that's a community enrichment recommendation, they have backup for everything that they've recommended. It's on the website, isn't it, on the city's website? All of their backup.
Yeah.
All of their, why they thought that was important is part of their plan.
And that's the community enrichment.
Community Enrichment Task
Yeah.
Force, but all
Yeah.
that, and it's on the
Task force.
website. So all of, anything that came from them
That's what
has backup
then
information.
became this.
I just understand the term, and of course, resilience can mean a million things, economic resilience.
Yeah.
You know, immunizations, being physically resilient, but I do generally hear the term as an infrastructure of being resilient against natural disaster or natural, you know, tidal, resilience. It's just how I hear it. It might be because of the role that I sit in, but, that's what I'm kind of hearing.
If that came from the task force, resilience would be related to property protection.
All right, so-
Well, environmental and property protection from
Perfect.
sea level rise, storms.
Storms.
Those kinds of things would be the emphasis.
Flooding.
We could include that in the newsletter, like, you know, particularly right now, right?
Hurricane
Right.
season.
Hurricane season,
season is-
resilient strategies, you know. Could talk about where to get sandbags, where to do, you know, there's a million things, so. Investigating?
Investigating.
Because we're investigating the newsletter, and that could be, feel like that would fit.
So I guess I would hear that the investigating, but kind of what you all are thinking would be a good fit is using the city's newsletter as a monthly, if, you know, or
A how
as a
to or
regular
a-
opportunity to
tips
provide
for-
tips.
Yeah, how-to tips for.
Okay.
Okay,
We
let's,
get those big packets, I don't know who we get them from, I don't know if it's from the city, like, we're now in hurricane season, be prepared.
The flood newsletter.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, where are we? We're hour and, what time are we?
Yeah, all right, let's do
5:25.
one more,
Do
and
one more.
then let's, we will make a motion eventually to move this to next month again.
Yeah, we can do I don't know.
Yeah.
5 to 10 each session, and what I'll do is I'll update this with a status column and a next step column.
Perfect.
So we can kind of review that.
That'd be
Okay,
great.
all right.
Develop plan to increase awareness of challenges and solutions that include do not harm messaging for residents, visitors, developers, and businesses. This is I'm not really.
I think that's,
Well,
Good neighbor, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
it would
that's
be a
the-
good neighbor, but it'd be helpful to have some additional background with that.
Increase awareness of challenges and solutions. Challenges to what is the question? It seems like there's missing part of that.
Some of those were grouped under like overall goals, and then underneath would have supporting recommendations. So, yeah, I think you are maybe in some cases missing some of the fall.
So should we just say like not sufficient information? I mean,
Well, we'll
this
get-
could
so-
be a challenge to anything.
yeah, we'll say on that one, we're investigating a deeper.
Investigating.
Because, and that is a common,
Investigating just this.
yeah,
The whole.
you need more
we
information.
need
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we get?
I can do that.
Okay.
Just for ease, the full recommendations of the of the task force, including the environmental subset, are on IOP.net and organized, I think, in 2 different ways, but you can see the complete list
Okay.
fairly easily by just looking on the city's website.
Got it.
Okay.
Looking for the plan.
All right.
All right.
That's our first 5.
So.
Okay. All right. Do we have any new business that we need to discuss?
Nope,
Okay. Or miscellaneous?
no.
Okay. Our next meeting will be Thursday, July the 10th at 4 PM. And I would like to ask for a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Off record of 5:27.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you all.
Thank you, dear.